There comes a time in nearly every journey when the weight grows so heavy that even the idea of taking another step feels overwhelming. It begins quietly, this fatigue, settling at the edge of awareness like the fading light at dusk. You wake one morning and find the familiar spark of energy, the effortless movement through the rhythms of your day, has dulled into something sluggish and reluctant. You sit with your hands resting on your knees, your eyes fixed on some indeterminate point in space, and wonder where all your strength has gone. What was once a bustling current of thoughts, ambitions, and hopes now feels like a sluggish river running dry. At first you try to push through. You remind yourself that everyone gets tired sometimes. You chalk it up to lack of sleep, to too many late nights, or too much on your plate. You reason that maybe it's just a busy week or the changing season, something that will soon pass if only you hold out a little longer. But as the days blur together, the sense of weariness grows, settling not just in your muscles, but in the very core of who you are. There's a heaviness inside, a kind of inner depletion that no amount of coffee or distraction can chase away. You begin to notice how even simple things take more effort. Conversations that once sparked your curiosity now feel draining. Tasks that used to come naturally are slow and cumbersome. You catch yourself avoiding mirrors because you don't recognize the tired person staring back. You wonder how long you've been carrying this exhaustion, if it's been weeks or months, or if, quietly, it's always been with you in one form or another. Perhaps it's not just physical tiredness, but something deeper, a soul-level exhaustion that seeps into the spaces between your thoughts. There's a restlessness beneath the fatigue, a searching for something you can't quite name. Maybe you've tried to fill the emptiness with busyness or noise, or even just scrolling through endless streams of images and updates, hoping to stumble on something that brings a sense of connection, of aliveness, if only for a moment. But nothing seems to reach that deeper ache. There are moments, late at night, when the distractions fall away and all that's left is the soft hum of your own heart and the quiet realization that you long for something more than just a break or a nap. What you crave is a peace that reaches beyond the surface, a rest that touches the deepest places of your being. You find yourself staring at the ceiling, asking silent questions. What am I missing? Why does the world seem to move on while I feel stuck, suspended between who I was and who I'm supposed to be? Is there something wrong with me, or is this exhaustion trying to tell me something? It's in these silent, restless hours that the mind begins its search for answers. You reflect on all the responsibilities that pile up day after day, the expectations you feel from others and the ones you place on yourself. Perhaps you think of relationships that feel strained, of dreams that once felt possible but now seem distant and unreachable. Maybe you sense the shadow of old regrets, or the quiet anxiety that the best parts of your life are slipping away unnoticed. The noise of life, emails, obligations, conversations, background sounds, fades, and all that remains is the yearning for a pause that isn't just physical, but soul deep. You remember times when you felt truly rested, but those memories seem almost mythical now. A childhood afternoon lying in the grass, watching clouds drift by, feeling time stretch out endlessly. A laughter-filled evening with friends when worries melted into the warmth of togetherness. Those moments come back as echoes, reminders of a kind of rest that was never just about sleep, but about a sense of belonging, safety, and being held by something greater than yourself. Now, in the midst of your current reality, that kind of peace seems almost out of reach. Yet even as you sit with your weariness, there's a faint hope, like a barely perceptible ember glowing in the ashes. You wonder if perhaps the real solution isn't about escaping or distracting yourself, but about turning toward the deeper questions that rise up when everything else grows quiet. What would it mean to be truly at rest? not just in body, but in mind and spirit. Is there a place where that kind of peace can be found? Or is it just wishful thinking for people who have the luxury of slowing down? You begin to realize that your longing isn't unusual. It's a thread that runs through so many lives, visible in the tired eyes of a stranger on the train, in the quiet sigh of a friend at the end of a long day, in the hushed confessions we make when we think no one is listening. It's a universal ache, this desire for rest, not just from work or worry, but from the relentless pressure to perform, to prove, to keep going no matter what. Somewhere deep down, you suspect that what you're seeking can't be found by merely rearranging your schedule or taking a weekend away. The rest you crave is more profound. It's a kind of surrender, a letting go of all the weight you've been carrying alone. And maybe, just maybe, it begins not with striving, but with a simple, honest acknowledgement. I am tired. I need help. I can't do this on my own. The thought is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it means admitting vulnerability, letting down the carefully constructed walls you've built to keep moving forward. But liberating because, for the first time in a long while, you allow yourself to imagine that rest is possible, that it isn't a weakness to seek peace, but an act of quiet courage. In that gentle surrender, you open yourself to the possibility that real rest might be found somewhere unexpected, not in grand gestures or perfect solutions, but in the quiet space where you allow yourself to be honest, where you stop running and simply sit, weary but hopeful, waiting to discover what it means to be truly at peace. And as you linger in that space, something within you begins to shift. It's subtle, like the first breath of dawn after a long night, the promise of rest, the hope of renewal, the whisper that you are not alone in your longing. All these stir within you, quietly urging you forward into the next part of your journey, toward the warmth of something greater than yourself, something that has been waiting for you all along. There is a hush that settles over the spirit when, in the midst of exhaustion, you allow yourself to imagine a place apart from the world's demands, a place where silence is not empty, but full of possibility. Somewhere beyond the reach of rushing deadlines, behind the clamor of everyday striving, a gentle light flickers in the mind's eye. At first, it is no more than a memory, or perhaps a longing carried from childhood. The glow of a campfire burning through the darkness, its heat warding off the chill that seeps into tired bones. The flames dance, and their movement is both wild and reassuring, a living heartbeat at the center of the night. You watch as embers rise and fall, the warmth reaching out in soft waves, drawing you closer until the rest of the world recedes into shadow. This fire is more than just a source of comfort. It is a gathering point for the weary, a beacon for those who have wandered too long in the cold. Its light promises not only relief from the shiver of loneliness, but also an invitation to rediscover something precious that was nearly lost. There, beside the fire, the burdens you have carried for so long grow lighter, not because they disappear, but because you are no longer bearing them alone. The flames seem to say that your tiredness has been seen, your solitude understood, and you are welcome, just as you are, to sit and rest. And as you settle into this imagined circle of warmth, you notice how the flicker of firelight brings color back to a world that had grown gray. Shadows that once seemed threatening now stretch long and soft, outlining the gentle forms of rocks and earth, the pattern of grass flattened by your footsteps. There is no need to speak, no obligation to explain yourself. The fire accepts you, with all your unspoken doubts, your regrets and hopes, your tangled memories. Its very presence is a quiet reassurance. You do not have to keep moving, proving, earning your place. Here, stillness is honored. You watch as others come, one by one, drawn by the same need for warmth. Some are strangers, their faces lit with relief as they find a seat on the circle's edge. Others are familiar, souls you have known in other times of rest and wandering. For a while, you simply share the silence, each person releasing the stories they have gathered on the long road behind them. There is a companionship in this gathering, even without words. You realize how many carry burdens just like yours, worries about the future, aches from the past, a constant undercurrent of longing for something softer, truer, more alive. The fire does not judge the shape or weight of what you bring. It simply burns, steady and patient, reminding you of an ancient truth, that warmth shared grows stronger, and that the act of gathering, of coming together in the face of night, kindles something deeper than heat. A trust begins to root, cautious but real. You see it in the way shoulders relax, in the slow return of laughter, in the softening of eyes once narrowed by fatigue. In this shared glow, the boundaries that separated you from others begin to blur. For the first time in a long while, you do not feel so alone with your struggles. Fire has always been a symbol of new beginnings, a force that both destroys and renews. As you sit with your hands stretched towards its gentle blaze, you remember moments in life when everything changed around a similar flame. The start of friendships, the telling of stories late into the night, the promises made and dreams confessed in the half-light. There is something transformative about fire. It invites honesty, draws secrets into the open, and burns away the pretense that so often keeps us apart from one another and from ourselves. Gradually, you sense a change in the air around you. The warmth of the fire seeps into the tightness in your chest, the coldness in your hands, the places inside that have grown numb. The world seems less threatening in this circle of light. Problems that once felt overwhelming shrink to a manageable size. The quiet companionship of others is like a balm on old wounds, and you find yourself breathing more deeply, your pulse slowing as your body remembers how it feels to rest without fear. It is here, at the edge of this firelight, that you realize the most profound transformation is taking place, not in the world outside, but within you. The flame is kindled not only by wood and air, but by hope. It is the hope that even after long nights and hard seasons, something within you remains unextinguished. You begin to see yourself not just as someone who endures, but as someone who belongs to this moment, to this community, to the ongoing story of those who seek warmth together in the darkness. You look into the depths of the fire and see not only your own reflection, but the echoes of others who have sat in circles like this throughout time. Their stories mingle with your own, tales of resilience and grace, laughter that rises out of sorrow, promises of guidance and protection whispered on the wind. The fire becomes a thread linking you to generations past, to those who once sought meaning and connection beneath the same wide sky. Slowly, your guard lowers. The need to be strong, to pretend you are not tired, slips away like smoke. You allow yourself to simply be, present, receptive, open to the possibility of healing. The heat of the fire reaches the places inside you that have grown cold, thawing old griefs and quieting the anxious thoughts that never seem to rest. Here, for the first time in what feels like forever, you sense the beginning of peace, a gentle unfolding rather than a dramatic revelation, a slow warming rather than a sudden blaze. It is not just the body that is warmed by fire, but the heart and mind as well. Around its glow, truth is easier to face, fears lose some of their power, and the courage to hope again stirs softly within. You see in the faces of those around you that you are not alone in your yearning. Each of you has come seeking, and each of you has found, if only for a moment, the reassurance that you matter, that your pain is not invisible, that rest is possible. As you lean into the fire's warmth, you allow yourself to imagine what might come next. Perhaps you will leave this place stronger, or at least a little less burdened. Perhaps the comfort you find here will follow you into the daylight, a memory of belonging to carry through the busyness of tomorrow. Most of all, you understand now that the journey does not have to be made alone. The fire will always be there, a gathering point, a symbol of inner warmth and renewal, an unspoken invitation to return whenever life grows cold. In the hush that lingers after laughter and stories have faded, as embers glow red and the night grows deep, you know that you have touched something eternal. The fire has marked you, not as someone merely passing through, but as a traveler who has found, if only for a while, the welcome and warmth your soul has longed for. And as you carry this memory with you, a gentle certainty settles in your chest, that wherever you go, you can carry this fire within, a light to guide you and a warmth to offer others when you find them in the darkness searching for a place to rest. In the steady glow of the fire, where silence carries its own quiet meaning, and every flicker seems to invite reflection, you begin to sense another presence. At first, it's only an impression, an inexplicable sense of calm, a feeling as if someone gentle and wise has joined you by the flames. The night is still, but the space around the fire feels fuller, richer, almost as though time itself has slowed to make room for something sacred. The burdens that have pressed against your heart feel lighter, not entirely gone, but somehow shared. You don't need to see a face to know that someone is near. The warmth you feel is more than just heat from burning wood. It is the warmth of being noticed, of being understood without words. Somewhere deep inside, a memory stirs, of simpler days, when comfort could be found in a parent's embrace, or in the soft murmur of a bedtime story. It's a sense of safety that transcends the complications of adulthood and the sharp edges of disappointment. Here, beside the fire, you are given permission to let go of every mask, to become small again in the presence of one who will not judge your weakness. A voice, quiet yet unwavering, seems to rise not from the air around you, but from within. A voice that calls you by name, that knows the hidden ache behind your tired eyes. There is no accusation in this voice, no demand for explanation, only invitation. Come, sit with me, rest. You do not need to hold it all together. These are words that reach further than encouragement. They are a promise, gentle and true, that you do not need to journey through the shadows alone. You remember stories told long ago, stories about a shepherd who knows every one of his sheep, who leaves the 99 to find the one who is lost or weary. The images come alive as you sit by the fire. Green pastures stretching into the distance, quiet waters reflecting an endless sky, and the soft strength of a shepherd's hand guiding you to places of peace. In the presence of this shepherd, you find yourself letting down the defenses you've built over years of disappointment. You allow yourself to trust, if only for a moment, that you can be cared for without condition. The night air is cool, but the shepherd's words form a shelter around you. "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing." These ancient words echo in your mind, and for the first time in a long time, you allow yourself to believe them. It's not that every problem has vanished or that every question has been answered. Instead, it's the subtle, life-changing realization that you are not left to solve it all alone. The shepherd leads you, not just with wisdom, but with care. He makes you lie down in green pastures, not as a reward for effort, but as a gift freely given to the weary. In the fire's glow, trust is born not out of obligation, but out of relief. You remember how exhausting it has been to depend only on your own strength, to keep pushing forward out of fear that everything rests on your shoulders. Now you let yourself imagine what it would mean to trust in the guidance of the shepherd, a guide who knows the path through every dark valley, who prepares a place for you even in the midst of adversity. The shepherd's rod and staff, once symbols you barely understood, now feel like tangible promises of comfort and protection. There is a simplicity in this trust, a childlike wonder that asks nothing more than to be led and cared for. You realize that true rest isn't just about ceasing from work, but about placing your worries, your needs, your very self in hands more capable than your own. The shepherd does not ask you to pretend that you are brave or strong. He only asks that you come as you are, honest and vulnerable, willing to receive. As you sit beside the shepherd, the conversation unfolds in words and in silence. You find yourself speaking freely about your disappointments, your fears, the hopes you hesitate to name. The shepherd listens, never rushing you, never dismissing your concerns. His presence is steady, his attention unwavering. When you stumble for words, he fills the spaces with understanding. When you weep, he does not turn away. When you are silent, he simply waits, patient and kind. With each passing moment, the boundaries of your isolation begin to dissolve. The shepherd does not merely sit beside you. He lifts some of the weight you've carried, gently reminding you that you are not expected to be invincible. In his care, you are allowed to rest, not just your body, but your soul, your anxious thoughts, your memories of struggle. He knows the landscape of your heart, the places that ache for healing, the dreams that have lain dormant beneath layers of fatigue. There is an intimacy in this encounter that words can barely describe. You realize that to be known in your fullness, to be embraced even in your imperfections, is the very thing your heart has been searching for. In the shepherd's gaze, you see acceptance, reassurance, and a quiet joy in simply being with you. This is not the kind of relationship built on transaction or achievement. It is the gift of presence, a bond that asks only for trust. As the fire burns lower and the stars shine brighter overhead, you feel a change within. The world outside the circle may still be complicated and uncertain, but here, in the shepherd's company, there is peace. You sense that the journey ahead will have its valleys and shadows, but you will not walk them alone. You are guarded by a care that neither sleeps nor grows weary, a care that promises to guide you home, no matter how far you may wander. With this assurance deepening in your chest, you allow yourself to rest. The shepherd remains near, watchful and gentle, his presence a shelter from every storm. And as you drift into a quiet place of surrender, you know that for this moment and always, you are protected, valued, and loved beyond measure. The fire glows on, and in its warmth, the shepherd's promise becomes the foundation on which new hope can be built. In the gentle afterglow of trust, the shepherd's presence opens your senses to a world you had almost forgotten. The hush that surrounds the fire extends outward, and you begin to see the world not as a landscape of demands, but as a place where goodness quietly waits to be noticed. The shepherd does not rush you from your rest, but instead invites you to look around, to breathe in the fragrance of night air, and let your gaze wander past the boundaries of old anxieties. There, in the shifting shadows and soft illumination, you discover an unexpected beauty, a beauty woven into the simplest parts of your existence. The image of green pastures, vivid in ancient words, becomes more than a metaphor. You remember the feeling of cool grass beneath your feet on summer mornings, the scent of dew rising in the early light, the way the breeze carries whispers of peace across open fields. The shepherd leads you not by command, but by gentle encouragement, guiding you towards spaces of nourishment and comfort that are never far from reach. Here, in these green pastures, there is no competition, no need to prove your worth. You are free to lie down, to release every tension in your body, and to allow the earth to cradle your weight. You realize in these moments that much of the happiness you've searched for is found in ordinary things. The taste of simple food, warm and satisfying after a day of wandering. The soothing rhythm of deep, unhurried sleep, where your thoughts are free to wander without fear. The silent company of those who share the journey. These are the treasures that fill your cup to overflowing. You see now how easily you overlooked them, distracted by the chase for something larger, brighter, more impressive. Yet it is in these small gifts that joy takes root and grows. The shepherd's way is not a hurried one. You were invited to move at the pace of your own breath, to listen for the quiet signals that call you to pause and receive. By the still waters you find your reflection, softened by the movement of the current. There is clarity in this calm, a chance to see yourself as you truly are, without the distortion of hurry or expectation. The water's gentle sound hushes your restless thoughts, offering a music that soothes rather than demands. It is here, among the grass and beside the water, that acceptance takes on new meaning. The shepherd's acceptance is not based on your accomplishments, but simply on your being. There is a profound relief in knowing you do not have to strive for this belonging. It is already yours, woven into the fabric of each moment spent in the shepherd's care. You notice how your heart softens, how your defenses lower as you lean into this acceptance. No longer driven by the need to impress or achieve, you allow yourself to simply be, a living, breathing soul cherished for nothing more and nothing less than your existence. You begin to remember moments from your past, fragments of laughter with loved ones, the comfort of a meal shared at the end of a long day, the sense of safety that comes from being known and welcomed. The shepherd has always been there, quietly guiding your steps to these green pastures, these tables of plenty. Even when you did not see the guidance, when you mistook routine for insignificance, the shepherd's hand was steady, leading you to a fullness you now begin to recognize. Even the challenges you have faced, the struggles and setbacks, take on a new light in this peaceful place. The shepherd's wisdom is revealed in the way he uses every part of your journey to bring you to this pasture, to these quiet waters. You understand now that peace is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of one who knows how to make the ordinary radiant with meaning. Every meal, every night's sleep, every kind word and gesture, these become signs of the shepherd's love, evidence that your life is cared for in ways both seen and unseen. There is, too, a sense of gentle companionship that grows as you linger by these waters. The shepherd is never far, watching over you with a gaze that reassures without intrusion. You sense the presence of others, fellow travelers who have discovered the same rest, the same joy in simplicity. Here you learn that happiness is not a solitary pursuit, but a shared experience. The warmth of friendship, the bond of acceptance, the quiet sharing of burdens, all these are gifts that flourish in the green pastures where the shepherd leads. In the hush of evening, as the light fades and stars begin to prick the sky, you find yourself grateful for these small, steady blessings. There is no need for grand declarations or dramatic achievements. The shepherd's care is evident in every detail, every moment of calm, and every taste of comfort. You realize that, far from being insignificant, these are the moments that sustain you, the moments where you are most alive, most yourself. With this realization, the pressure to always do more, to always be more, begins to fade. You see now that rest and joy are not rewards to be earned, but gifts to be received. The shepherd leads you beside quiet waters not just to give you respite, but to remind you of the beauty that is yours right now in the ordinary rhythm of life. And as you surrender to this simplicity, you find a happiness that endures, a happiness rooted not in circumstance, but in the steady, loving presence of the shepherd who calls you his own. There are moments on the journey, even after finding rest in green pastures and beside quiet waters, when the world suddenly shifts and darkness falls across the path. It arrives quietly, sometimes without warning, a thickening of the air, a change in the familiar landscape, as if sunlight has slipped behind clouds and the comfort you once knew is now distant, unreachable. The gentle breeze grows colder, the sounds of life recede, and you find yourself standing at the edge of a valley where the shadows run deep. This is the valley described in ancient words, a place where even the bravest hearts can falter. The valley of the shadow is not always a physical place, but often a state of the soul, a time of uncertainty, fear, and longing for answers that do not come. The world becomes smaller, more uncertain, and each step forward feels like a challenge against unseen obstacles. The darkness here is not only the absence of light, but the presence of doubts and worries that crowd the mind in the stillness of night. In these times, old fears resurface, magnified by silence. Shadows stretch across your thoughts, whispering of everything that could go wrong, of dangers hidden just beyond sight. The road behind seems impossibly far, the road ahead shrouded in mist. There is a peculiar kind of loneliness in the valley, an isolation that comes not just from being alone, but from the feeling that no one else can truly understand the battles you are facing within. The night seems endless, and even the memory of past comforts fades, leaving you searching for something to hold on to. Yet it is precisely in these places of darkness that the deepest encounters can occur. When you are stripped of distractions, when your strength feels spent and your courage worn thin, a different kind of awareness awakens. The shepherd who once led you through fields of peace does not abandon you here. His presence, though unseen, is even more profound, a guiding force in the gloom, a quiet companion whose steps fall in perfect time with your own. You recall the ancient promise, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." These words are more than poetry. They are a lifeline, repeated, not for comfort alone, but as a declaration of trust that transcends fear. The shepherd's rod and staff, symbols once mysterious, now become vital. They guide you when the path is invisible, protect you when dangers approach, and remind you that, even in the valley, you are never truly alone. The darkness can make everything seem uncertain, but there is one certainty that remains. The shepherd does not leave your side. He walks at your pace, patient with your fear, attentive to your every need. There is no reproach for trembling, no disappointment in your weakness. Here you are met with compassion, a steady, quiet assurance that you are known and valued, even when your own light feels faint. You begin to see that it is in the valley that trust becomes real. On the mountaintop, it is easy to believe in goodness and care. But here, where vision fails and courage wavers, faith becomes more than just an idea. It becomes an anchor, holding you fast when all else feels uncertain. The shepherd does not demand heroics. He does not rush you through the darkness, but gently matches his pace to yours, speaking peace into the whirlwind of your thoughts. Sometimes the valley lasts longer than you expect. Nights stretch on, dreams are haunted by worry, and each morning brings only the smallest increase of light. In these moments, you may question why the path must lead through such difficulty, why the comfort of green pastures seems so far away. Yet, with each step, the shepherd proves himself faithful. He reminds you that the valley is not the end of your journey, but a passage, a necessary part of the story that shapes you in ways comfort never could. Here, you learn the true meaning of courage. It is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to keep moving forward, trusting that you are accompanied and cared for. The shepherd listens when you pour out your fears, absorbs your silence, and holds your trembling hand. In the stillness of the valley, you discover a presence stronger than the darkness, a love that refuses to be pushed away by anxiety or grief. As you move through the shadow, you begin to notice signs of hope, small but persistent. A glimmer of starlight above, the hush of night wind through the trees, the steady rhythm of your own heartbeat, reminders that life endures even here. You realize that you are being shaped by this experience, your soul strengthened by the quiet resolve to trust in the face of fear. The shepherd's voice is sometimes a whisper, sometimes a silence, but always a comfort, guiding you toward the dawn that lies beyond the darkness. You remember, too, the stories of others who have walked through valleys of their own. Their words reach across time, reminding you that you are not alone in your struggles. Countless have found their faith in the deepest shadow, emerging on the far side with eyes that see the world more clearly, hearts softened by empathy, and a new gratitude for the gentle light that finally returns. And then, when the night is at its deepest, a new awareness takes root. The darkness has not defeated you. It has become a place of encounter, where you are met by the shepherd in ways you never were in the sunlight. Here, your vulnerability is transformed into strength, your questions become prayers, and your fear is met by the unwavering presence of the one who will never leave you. The valley, far from being a place of abandonment, becomes the ground of your deepest growth, a sacred passage where trust is not only born, but proven, step by careful step. And as the dawn finally brightens the edges of the world, you realize that the valley has not diminished you. Instead, it has given you a new understanding of the shepherd's care, a resilience shaped by shared struggle, and a peace that carries you forward, ready to follow the next turn in the path, wherever it may lead. In the deepest folds of the valley, when all outer light seems far away, and the presence of the shepherd feels like your only certainty, something begins to rise from within you. A cry not crafted from polished phrases, but from the rough, honest material of your truest feelings. This is not the place for rehearsed speeches or careful self-editing. Here, where the world has grown so quiet that you can hear your own heartbeat echoing, the only prayer that makes sense is the one that springs straight from your raw, unfiltered need. You find yourself sitting by the embers of the fire, shoulders slumped, hands open and empty. The effort of holding everything together has left you tired, and you no longer have the strength to keep up appearances. You want to speak, but the words feel heavy or incomplete. For a moment, you simply let yourself sit in silence, allowing every ache and unspoken worry to gather until they press up against your lips, too big to be hidden any longer. And so you begin, not with grand declarations, but with a whisper. "Help me." It's a single phrase, but it carries the weight of sleepless nights, of quiet despair, of dreams left unspoken. You remember the ancient songs, the psalms whispered through generations, sung by wanderers and kings, the desperate and the faithful. Their words become your own. "Answer me when I call, my righteous God. Give me relief from my distress. Have mercy on me and hear my prayer." You do not need to invent something new. The prayers of others who have walked through shadow and fire become the path on which you walk. Their honesty gives you permission to bring all of yourself into the conversation, your hope and your bitterness, your trust and your doubt. Sometimes your prayer is a complaint. "Why have you forgotten me? Why must I go about mourning?" Other times it is a simple confession. "I am afraid. I am lost. I do not know what to do." There is comfort in knowing that even the psalmists, whose faith has echoed through centuries, have cried out in frustration and fear. Their voices trembled too, their hearts broke, and yet their words have been treasured and remembered, not in spite of their honesty, but because of it. There are moments when your voice cracks, when words fail altogether and tears speak for you. You let them fall, unashamed, as offerings of trust. The shepherd does not turn away. Instead, he sits beside you, a silent companion in your grief. His presence does not demand a performance. He does not ask you to hide your tears or force a smile. Instead, he welcomes every sigh, every groan, every wordless longing as part of your story. You learn that real prayer is not about finding the right formula, but about showing up as you are. You pray with your exhaustion, with your uncertainty, with your half-formed hopes. Sometimes your prayers are only questions. "How long must I wait? Where are you, God?" And sometimes they are only silence. But even that is heard and held. You discover, slowly, that it is not your eloquence, but your honesty that draws the shepherd close. He delights in truth, even when that truth is messy or unfinished. As you continue, the Psalms become a lifeline. "When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." You recite these lines like a mantra, letting them echo through your fears and uncertainties. They become both shield and comfort, reminding you that you are not the first to walk this difficult path and cry out for mercy. Over time, you begin to notice how prayer changes you. It does not always change your circumstances, at least not right away, but it softens your heart, draws you out of isolation, and weaves you into a lineage of seekers and survivors. You realize that even in your weakest moments, you are heard and understood. The shepherd receives every word, every silence, every tear as a precious offering. In this honest dialogue, something shifts inside. The valley does not seem as endless. The darkness is no longer absolute. You sense a flicker of hope, a faint light on the horizon, born not from denial or forced optimism, but from the quiet confidence that you are known and cared for, just as you are. Your honesty becomes a doorway, a passage through which comfort and guidance can flow. And so you keep praying, not because you have mastered the art of it, but because it is the only thing that feels real. In the presence of the shepherd, you are learning that to cry out, to lament, to question, and even to doubt is a sacred act. You bring your whole self to the fire, your needs, your disappointments, your joys, your fears. You trust, finally, that the one who listens does not grow weary of your cries, but gathers each one and holds them close, shaping them into something new, an answer, a comfort, a gentle strength to help you rise and take another step through the night. As the day draws to a close and the last glow of embers settles into a quiet hush, you notice the way the world itself seems to exhale. The air cools, shadows lengthen, and a gentle darkness wraps the landscape in its soft embrace. Night falls not as a threat, but as an invitation to let go, to surrender the burdens you have carried from dawn to dusk, to discover a kind of rest that is deeper than mere sleep. For so long, the hours after sunset have been filled with worries and unfinished lists. You have lain awake counting what remains undone, rehearsing what could go wrong tomorrow, feeling the weight of all you cannot control. Restlessness has been your companion, your mind racing with thoughts you cannot quiet. The night has seemed too quiet, its silence magnifying your fears and uncertainties. You have searched for peace in the rituals of distraction, hoping that fatigue alone would finally overcome your anxious wakefulness. Yet the sleep that arrives under the shadow of fear is never gentle, and the morning comes with its own kind of weariness. But something changes when you learn the art of trust, when you allow yourself, even for a moment, to believe that you are not alone in your vigil. The shepherd who guides by day also watches by night. His care does not diminish when darkness falls. In fact, it is in these hours, when you can no longer rely on your own strength or sight, that you discover just how attentive and gentle his watchfulness truly is. He stands guard over your dreams and worries alike, promising protection that no lock or wall could ever provide. You remember the ancient words whispered in the quiet. In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. This is not a promise of a life without storms, but of a heart that can rest unafraid, knowing that the one who holds the universe also holds you. To trust in this way is a new habit, learned slowly, a choice to unclench your hands, release your hold on tomorrow, and place your confidence in a presence that neither sleeps nor abandons. At first, it feels unfamiliar to let go. You may find your mind returning to old patterns, rehearsing worries and second-guessing every decision. But gradually, as you practice this surrender, you begin to notice subtle changes. Your breath slows as you settle into bed, and the tension in your muscles eases. You feel the difference between forced exhaustion and real peace, the kind that seeps through every part of you, even as your body relaxes and your thoughts quiet down. You discover that the shepherd's care is not just for your waking hours, but for every part of your life. He is near when you are aware of him, and just as near when you are lost in dreams. You sense his presence in the hush of midnight, in the gentle rhythms of sleep, in the way that dawn returns to find you whole and unharmed. The night, once filled with shadows and imagined dangers, becomes a sanctuary. It is no longer something to fear, but a gift, a space for renewal, a reminder that you do not have to be in control to be safe. This new habit of trust is built night after night in small acts of release. You offer your fears as you close your eyes, whispering them into the darkness. You let go of the day's regrets and tomorrow's unknowns, placing them in hands far more capable than your own. Sometimes you find yourself waking in the early hours, anxiety rising unbidden. In those moments, you remember that you are never truly alone. You picture the shepherd sitting beside you, watchful and kind, and you return to rest, allowing his presence to be your comfort. The safety you discover in these nights is not rooted in circumstances, but in relationship. You realize that you are being cared for not because the world is safe, but because you are loved. It is a love that stands guard when you are most vulnerable, that keeps watch even when your eyes close, that greets you each morning with new mercies. This love invites you to sleep without fear, to rise without regret, to walk through each day with a quiet courage that comes from knowing you are never abandoned. Over time, rest becomes not just a necessity, but a sacred rhythm, a space where you encounter the shepherd's kindness in the simplest, most profound way. Each night is an opportunity to practice trust, to surrender what you cannot change, and to receive the peace that only he can give. You wake refreshed, not because life is suddenly easy, but because you have learned to lean into a security that is stronger than your circumstances. As this habit takes root, it transforms more than your nights. It brings a softness to your days, a confidence to your steps, a gentle assurance to your relationships. You become someone who knows how to rest, not because all your questions are answered, but because you have found someone trustworthy enough to hold them. The shepherd's promise is not just for green pastures and quiet waters, but for the silent hours when the world sleeps and your heart is most in need of peace. So you keep returning to this practice, night after night. You trust that, even in the darkness, you are watched over with a care that never fails. And in that trust, you find a new kind of freedom, the freedom to rest, to be renewed, to welcome the coming day with a heart unburdened and a spirit at peace. There is a deep comfort that grows in the soul when you realize that true safety is not a fleeting moment or a fragile shelter, but a steadfast promise that endures through every storm. In the quiet spaces after rest, as dawn breaks gently across the world and the memories of the valley linger at the edges of thought, you begin to notice how much your heart yearns for security, a place to belong, a refuge from the world's unpredictability, a shield that nothing can breach. The longing for protection is universal, written into the fabric of every human story, and yet too often we search for it in places that cannot truly keep us safe. But the shepherd, who knows every shadow and every open field, offers a different kind of refuge. His promises are not rooted in the shifting sands of circumstance, but in the unchanging strength of his love. You remember the words of the ancient song, "Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty." These are not just words for the strong or the fearless. They are an invitation for the weary, the uncertain, the vulnerable, to come and find a place of unshakable safety. The images unfold in your mind like a tapestry. Wings stretched wide, soft and mighty, drawing you close beneath their span. A fortress rising strong and unyielding against every threat. A shield lifted high, absorbing every blow meant for you. Each symbol offers a layer of reassurance, a reminder that you are not left to face the world's dangers alone. The shepherd becomes not only a guide and a companion, but a protector, a guardian whose vigilance never wavers. You picture the shelter of wings, the way a mother bird gathers her young beneath her feathers as the wind howls and rain lashes against the world outside. Beneath those wings, there is warmth and quiet, the closeness of breath and heartbeat, the certainty that whatever rages beyond, it cannot reach you here. You imagine what it means to be held in this way, not hidden from all of life, but shielded from what would undo you, wrapped in the comfort of a love that will not let you go. The image of a fortress is different, but just as strong. Stone walls rise high and thick, built over ages, tested by countless storms. Inside, you find space to breathe, to rest, to recover from the world's assaults. The walls do not prevent every hardship from coming, but they guarantee that you are never left defenseless. There is a confidence that grows within these boundaries, a steady pulse of hope that beats in rhythm with the shepherd's promise. You are my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Sometimes the world's threats are not obvious or physical. Sometimes they are the slow erosion of hope, the insistent voice of worry, the fear that sneaks in when you are most tired. In these moments, the shield becomes the image that speaks to you. It is raised by the shepherd's own hand, intercepting every arrow of doubt or discouragement, absorbing the blows you were never meant to carry. You realize that this shield is not built from your own strength, but from the shepherd's faithfulness, a resource that cannot be exhausted no matter how fierce the battle. As you meditate on these images, you notice a shift inside. The feeling of vulnerability begins to ease, replaced by a quiet assurance that you are watched over. The circumstances of life may not always change. Storms may come, nights may grow long, but your safety does not depend on the absence of struggle. It is rooted in the presence of one who stands between you and harm, who knows every threat before it arises, who will never abandon you to face danger alone. The ancient words continue to echo. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. You let these promises settle into your bones, deeper than fear, deeper than memory. You allow yourself to believe, even for a moment, that the shepherd's protection is real and present, strong enough to hold you in every storm, gentle enough to soothe every ache. You begin to live differently under this protection. There is less need to defend yourself, less urgency to build walls of your own making. You find courage to step into the world, to love and trust and hope, knowing that your true safety is never at risk. The world can be unpredictable, but you rest in the knowledge that you are guarded by something far greater than chance or fate. The shepherd's protection frees you from anxiety's grip. You sleep without dread, rise without bracing for the worst, move through your days with an ease that surprises you. You notice how your heart opens more readily to others, how you offer comfort instead of suspicion, how you forgive more quickly, knowing that nothing essential can be taken from you. The sense of safety you have found is not isolation, but connection to the shepherd, to yourself, and to the world. As the day unfolds and the fire once again beckons you to its warmth, you carry with you the quiet conviction that you are never unprotected. You have found a shelter that endures, a shield that never fails, wings that cover you in every season. And in this safety, you discover not only peace, but the freedom to live fully, unafraid, unburdened, and secure in the unwavering care of the one who calls you his own. There are times when the world closes in, when darkness presses on every side, and even the smallest sources of comfort seem distant or faint. In these hours, the soul learns what it means to yearn for light. Not just the sunlight that marks the turning of day, but an inner flame that can endure even when hope itself appears to be fading. The darkness does not always announce itself with drama. Sometimes it settles quietly, thickening the air, clouding every thought, whispering that this night will never end. It becomes difficult to believe in dawn when each step forward is shrouded in uncertainty. Yet even in such moments, there comes a subtle change, almost imperceptible at first. A flicker rises, not from the world outside, but from deep within, where memory and longing for goodness still survive. It is the smallest spark of hope, a quiet intuition that you are not forgotten, that light can find you even here. This light does not dispel all shadows at once, but it pushes gently against them, promising that you are not alone in the darkness. The words of the ancient song come to mind, steady and defiant. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" There is power in these lines, not because they deny the reality of fear and struggle, but because they declare that fear does not have the final word. The psalmist's cry is not the voice of someone untouched by hardship, but of one who has walked through shadow and still dares to look toward the possibility of dawn. In his words, you find the courage to keep going, to lift your eyes even when the world gives you every reason to look down. It is here, in the interplay of darkness and light, that you begin to notice something remarkable. Hope is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it glows quietly, like a candle in a window on a stormy night. Its light seen only by those who are looking for it. This hope is gentle but persistent, refusing to be snuffed out by disappointment or despair. It takes root in simple things, a kind word offered when you least expect it, the memory of a promise whispered long ago, the presence of someone who sits with you in silence rather than offering easy answers. You find that this inner light is sustained not by your own effort alone, but by returning again and again to the source, the shepherd who has walked every path of shadow before you, who knows the way even when you cannot see it. His presence does not always erase the darkness, but it changes the way you experience it. You begin to see that the darkness, while real, is not absolute. There are places where the light breaks through, illuminating just enough for the next step, the next breath, the next moment of trust. Sometimes the first sign of hope is simply the strength to pray again, to lift your voice with trembling faith and ask for guidance. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and take heart, and wait for the Lord, the psalmist writes, not as a command to deny your feelings, but as an encouragement to hold on when giving up feels easier. In waiting, you discover that hope is active, not passive. It is the decision to look for the light, to nurture it, to believe that it can grow even in hard places. Sometimes, the first sign of hope is simply the strength to pray again, to lift your voice with trembling faith and ask for guidance. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord, the psalmist writes, not as a command to deny your feelings, but as an encouragement to hold on when giving up feels easier. In waiting, you discover that hope is active, not passive. It is the decision to look for the light, to nurture it, to believe that it can grow even in hard places. As you let this light grow, you notice changes within. Your heart beats steadier, your breath deepens. The shadows lose some of their power, and the path ahead, though still dim, no longer feels impossible. You realize that the courage to keep hoping is itself a kind of light, one that can be shared, passed from hand to hand, heart to heart, sustaining you and those who walk alongside you. You also find that light attracts light. As you dare to hope, you notice others drawn to your quiet strength. A smile exchanged, a story shared, an act of generosity offered without expectation. These become ways in which the light is multiplied. The community of those who refuse to give in to darkness becomes its own source of warmth, a constellation of small but vital flames shining against the night. Gradually, you come to see the darkness differently. It is no longer just something to be endured, but a place where light is given its greatest meaning. The contrast reveals the brilliance of each hopeful moment, each act of courage, each choice to trust that morning will come. The shepherd's promise, once distant, becomes tangible. A lamp for your feet, a guide through the valley, a shield against the loneliness that darkness so often brings. As you sit with the fire, watching the way its glow chases the night, you feel gratitude for the journey that has brought you here, not in spite of the darkness, but because it has made the light so precious. You carry this inner flame forward, not as a guarantee that you will never face shadows again, but as a promise that hope can always be kindled, even in the bleakest hour. With every breath, every prayer, every step, you live the truth that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. There comes a moment in every journey when the restless drive to keep moving begins to lose its hold, and something deeper calls for your attention. It is a call that comes not with noise or urgency, but with the soft insistence of silence, a presence that waits patiently beneath every hurried thought, every crowded schedule, every anxious beating of your heart. In a world shaped by motion and demand, learning to stop, to be still, feels at first like a strange and almost rebellious act. Yet it is within this very pause that the soul discovers what it truly means to listen and to be transformed. You notice how the mind resists the quiet at first, scrambling to fill every empty space with activity, planning, remembering, or anticipating. Stillness can be unsettling, exposing the unease you keep buried beneath the surface. But as you choose again and again to stay present in the silence, you begin to notice its gifts. The rush of thoughts slows. The tension in your body begins to ease. In this gentle space, you find a freedom that busyness never offers, a freedom to simply be, to rest without the expectation of performing or producing. There is a kind of courage in embracing silence. The world around you may continue at its relentless pace, but you choose to step out of that current, to let it flow past while you anchor yourself in the present moment. It is in this quiet that your true desires rise to the surface, not the demands imposed by others, but the deep longings that have always been a part of you. You sense the subtle difference between loneliness and solitude. Here, solitude becomes a sacred companion, not a punishment, but a place of encounter. In the hush, you start to hear things you missed before. The steady rhythm of your breath, the gentle pulse of your heart, the soft sounds of life that exist beneath the world's clamor. Most of all, you begin to hear the voice that is always speaking, but rarely noticed, a whisper that comes from beyond yourself, offering wisdom, reassurance, and peace. The shepherd speaks not with shouts or thunder, but with a quiet so profound that it fills every corner of your soul. It is in this silence that true comfort finds you, not the temporary relief of distraction, but the abiding consolation of presence. You realize that you are not alone in the quiet. The one who knows you better than you know yourself is here, attentive to every unspoken thought, every hidden ache. You begin to understand why ancient wisdom teaches, "Be still and know that I am God." In the stillness, understanding dawns, not as a sudden revelation, but as a gentle unfolding, a light that spreads gradually, illuminating the places within you that most need healing. The act of listening becomes its own kind of prayer. You set aside your petitions and complaints and simply open yourself to receive. At first, you may hear only your own doubts and fears, the noise of all you wish you could change. But as you persist, as you surrender your need for answers, a deeper voice emerges, one that reassures you that you are seen, that your struggles matter, that you are loved beyond measure. Silence teaches you that you do not need to have everything figured out. The shepherd does not demand explanations or solutions. He invites you to trust, to lean into the unknown with confidence that you are guided. In the space where words end, a new kind of knowing takes root, a wisdom that cannot be learned from books or acquired through effort, but is given as a gift to those who are willing to wait, to listen, to rest in the mystery. As you practice this art of listening, you begin to notice its effects ripple outward into the rest of your life. Your responses become gentler, your judgments less hurried. You find that you are more present with others, able to hear beneath their words to the heart of what they are sharing. The need to rush, to fill every moment with noise or action, fades as you discover the richness of simply being. In this newfound quiet, you experience comfort that is not dependent on circumstances. Even when the world grows chaotic or uncertain, you can return to this inner sanctuary, a place where peace is restored and perspective regained. Here, you are reminded that you do not walk alone, that every step you take is observed with loving attention. Ultimately, silence becomes a source of strength and clarity. You move forward with a renewed sense of purpose, not driven by urgency, but guided by the quiet wisdom that comes from time spent listening. The shepherd's voice, once faint, becomes a steady guide, leading you with tenderness and confidence. And so you walk on, grounded in the assurance that real understanding and healing are found not in the clamor of the world, but in the gentle, persistent invitation to be still and know, to rest, to listen, and to let the deep comfort of presence shape your way forward. There are days when the shadows seem too thick, when the air feels heavy and the heart aches for relief. Even in the quiet after finding shelter, even in the safety and silence you have begun to trust, hardship can linger like a stubborn fog. Yet in the midst of it all, there lies a secret wellspring, one that does not deny pain, that rises defiantly in its presence, the music of joy. This joy does not come from perfect circumstances or a life untouched by loss. It is born from a deeper place, rooted in hope, watered by gratitude, and revealed most vividly when the darkness gathers close. It starts softly, perhaps with a single note, a memory of laughter, a melody hummed under your breath, a phrase of a song that once comforted you as a child. There is something mysterious about music, how it moves through the barriers you erect in times of trouble, how it slips past reason and worry, how it can make your spirit rise even when nothing in your circumstances has changed. Sometimes it is the old hymns or psalms echoing in the back of your mind, words of praise sung by voices that have endured storms, that have learned to hope when everything else has failed. You discover that joy, like light, is not always loud or exuberant. Sometimes it is a quiet refrain, a gentle lifting of the heart even as the world remains unsteady. There is a strength in choosing to sing when you feel low, in letting your soul reach for gratitude when reasons to be thankful are hard to find. The shepherd is shown that the songs of the soul are not reserved for the easy days. The psalmist declared, "I will sing and make music to the Lord, even in the presence of my enemies." In that declaration is a kind of freedom, the power to refuse despair the final word, to let hope ring out above the clamor of discouragement. Gratitude becomes an instrument, each note a reminder that good things exist alongside the difficult. You begin to notice small graces, a warm cup of tea held in tired hands, the sound of rain on the roof, the gentle humor in a friend's words. You learn to give thanks for these simple gifts, weaving them into your songs of hope. Sometimes the act of naming what is good changes your outlook, even if only for a moment. Gratitude is not a denial of sorrow, but a defiant affirmation that beauty and kindness remain. The power of song is found not just in solitary moments, but in community. When voices join together, even softly, they create a resonance that is larger than any one person's strength. In singing together, burdens are shared, loneliness is eased, hope is kindled anew. Even if the melody is broken or the words falter, the act of raising your voice with others is itself an act of courage, a way of saying that the struggle is not the end of your story. Music has the capacity to open you to healing. It lifts you above the immediate pain and lets you glimpse a broader horizon, a promise that the night will not last forever. The melodies and harmonies become prayers in motion, carried on the breath, shaping a language of longing and hope that words alone could never capture. Even tears, when they come, mingle with the music, cleansing the heart and making space for new joy to grow. You begin to see that joy is a discipline as much as a gift. It is practiced in the choice to return to song, to gratitude, to laughter, especially on days when they seem far away. The shepherd smiles on every attempt, each halting note, each whispered prayer of thanks, each burst of laughter rising unexpectedly from the soul. In this spiritual practice, you arm yourself for the journey. Joy becomes a shield, music a weapon, gratitude a steady companion in the battle for hope. There are moments when the melody grows strong, when your heart feels light, and the world seems once again full of possibility. But even on days when the music is faint, when the only song you can manage is a single trembling note, you remember that this too is worship. The shepherd listens, gathers your offerings, and adds them to the great chorus of all those who have sung before you, voices raised not in perfect harmony, but in unyielding faith. So you sing, and you give thanks, not because life is always easy, but because you have discovered a deeper rhythm, a music that echoes through the valleys and across the mountaintops, that binds you to others and to the shepherd who walks with you. In this song you find the power to endure, the courage to hope, and the radiant joy that no matter what comes, your heart can sing again. There are times when the familiar world seems to shift beneath your feet, when the structures you have leaned on start to tremble, and the things that once felt solid and unshakable begin to dissolve in the winds of change. It happens suddenly or with a slow, creeping certainty. The job you counted on is gone. Relationships fracture, plans unravel, and what once brought comfort now stirs anxiety. The world outside grows louder, full of crises and confusion, and the world inside mirrors that turmoil. You feel adrift, as if you are standing in the center of a great storm, the noise and chaos pressing in from every direction. It is then that the ancient words of Psalm 46 begin to ring in your soul. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. These words do not deny the reality of disaster or the raw ache of loss. They speak instead of a deeper foundation, a refuge that does not depend on circumstances or the stability of the world around you. The psalmist's vision is bold and honest. Earthquakes and roaring seas, nations in uproar, kingdoms tottering on the edge. It is a vision that does not gloss over chaos, but acknowledges it head on. And yet, in the very center of that chaos, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, a presence that brings peace when nothing else makes sense. The promise is not that storms will never come, but that even in the fiercest tempest, there remains a safe haven, a place where the shepherd stands watch, unshaken, unafraid. You discover that trust in these moments is not the absence of fear, but the decision to cling to a greater hope. You cannot control the storm, but you can choose where to set your anchor. The world may rage, but within the embrace of the shepherd's care, you are held steady. You learn to ride out the storm not by denying its power, but by refusing to let it define your identity or dictate your future. In the eye of chaos, you begin to notice a quiet that the world cannot touch. There is a stillness here, deep and unwavering, like the calm at the center of a hurricane. The shepherd's voice cuts through the noise, not with grand proclamations, but with a simple command: "Be still, and know that I am God." In those words, you find the strength to breathe, to pause, to remember that you are not abandoned, no matter how fierce the winds become. Faith in the storm is not a blind leap, but a practiced trust, a habit formed in 100 small choices, in every whispered prayer, in every act of surrender. You hold fast to the shepherd's promise, letting go of what you cannot control and resting in what cannot be shaken. You find your footing not in your own ability, but in the faithfulness of the one who stands beside you. Even as the world outside continues to shake and shift, you learn to live from this deeper place of security. The river of peace flows quietly within, nourishing your spirit, refreshing your hope. You realize that you are not powerless. You have the power to choose faith over fear, to look for the presence of God in the midst of upheaval, to trust that even when everything else falls away, you are held by hands that never let go. With every passing storm, your confidence grows, not in your own strength, but in the certainty that you are not alone. The chaos of life does not have the final say. The shepherd's voice still speaks. The river still flows, and you are anchored in a refuge that nothing can destroy. In the midst of every trial, you remember, you belong to one who is greater than the storm, whose love endures beyond the shaking of the world, and whose peace is yours, even when all else is lost. There are seasons when the greatest threats do not come from the storms raging outside, but from the quieter, more insidious battles fought within. After the thunder fades and the winds still, you become aware of another kind of conflict, a struggle that is not seen but felt in the hidden places of the heart and mind. Here, in the quiet aftermath, you confront enemies that do not wear familiar faces, temptations that whisper promises of relief, fears that coil and tighten when you are weary, and the persistent, corrosive voice of doubt that questions your worth and belonging. These inner adversaries are subtle. They disguise themselves in half-truths and rationalizations, offering shortcuts to comfort or belonging that always come with hidden costs. Sometimes they speak in your own voice, echoing old insecurities or wounds from the past. Other times they borrow the voices of others, the sharp criticism of a parent, the mockery of a peer, the disapproval of a crowd that never truly knew you. Their strategy is isolation, convincing you that you are the only one who struggles, that your battles set you apart from all others. But there are outer threats too, moments when the world's pressures seem intent on squeezing faith from your life. The temptation to compromise, to trade integrity for acceptance, can be relentless. The world celebrates what is easy, what is popular, what gratifies in the moment, and often sneers at the quiet disciplines that sustain your soul. The lie that everyone else is stronger, happier, or more confident can become a heavy burden, making it harder to stand your ground when standing alone. It is in these battles, both visible and invisible, that you come to understand the need for protection that goes beyond your own strength. The shepherd's care is not only gentle and comforting, it is also fiercely protective. You remember the ancient assurance, "He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." You do not walk unarmed or undefended. The shield of faith is given for moments such as these, a barrier against the fiery darts of accusation, comparison, and despair. You learn that the armor needed for this struggle is not crafted from pride or self-sufficiency, but from humility, vigilance, and truth. Honesty becomes your greatest ally, naming the temptations and fears for what they are, refusing to hide or excuse them, bringing them into the light where their power diminishes. The shepherd welcomes even your darkest admissions, not with condemnation, but with grace that restores and fortifies. There is strength in confession, in admitting your need, in asking for help when the battle feels too great. Resisting these inner and outer enemies requires practices that are simple yet profound. You immerse yourself in truth, returning to promises and wisdom that anchor your identity beyond shifting circumstances. You cultivate watchfulness, noticing when old patterns or lies begin to creep in, and countering them with the assurance of the shepherd's presence. Prayer becomes your constant companion, not just a plea for escape, but a conversation that strengthens resolve and renews vision. You find, too, that you are not truly alone in this fight. Others are walking their own hidden battles, facing their own shadows and temptations. The community of the faithful becomes a shield wall, each person's honesty and encouragement reinforcing your own. You learn to reach out, to share your struggles without shame, to receive and to offer support. Together, you resist the darkness, reminding each other of what is true, noble, and worth holding on to. There will be times when failure comes, When you stumble or give in to the old voices or tempting shortcuts, even then the shepherd's protection does not withdraw. Instead, he meets you with forgiveness and strength to rise again, to take up your shield and continue the journey. You begin to understand that victory in these battles is not measured by perfection, but by perseverance, by the decision day after day to return to the path of truth and love, no matter how many times you falter. Ultimately, purity and faithfulness are not ideals you achieve on your own, but gifts sustained by grace and vigilance. As you walk forward, you do so with the assurance that you are watched over, not only in times of peace, but in every skirmish of the heart. The shepherd is both defender and healer, arming you with truth, covering you with love, and promising that no enemy, within or without, can separate you from the safety of his embrace. In this strength, you move forward, steadfast and whole, even when the fight feels hardest, trusting that the victory has already been promised and the one who walks beside you will see you through. There comes a point on the journey where the battles subside and the noise of both storm and struggle fades, leaving you alone with the quietest, most persistent questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What is my worth in a world that measures value by fleeting achievements and shifting approval? In these moments, when old identities feel thin and borrowed dreams no longer fit, you are drawn to look deeper, to search for meaning that endures beyond circumstance or opinion. You remember the wisdom woven through ancient proverbs and the heartfelt cries of the Psalms, their voices reaching across generations to assure you that you are neither an accident nor an afterthought. The shepherd's gaze, ever steady, meets your searching eyes and answers with a truth that cannot be shaken. You are known, cherished, and set apart for a purpose that is both personal and eternal. Before you spoke your first word, before you took your first uncertain step, you were seen and loved with an affection that does not diminish with time or failure. The world is quick to assign value, to judge and compare, to sort people by their abilities, looks, or influence. But the shepherd's measure is different. He sees the heart, the hopes and longings, the kindnesses offered in secret, the resilience born in silent struggles. In his eyes, every life is a work of art, each soul a masterpiece in progress. The ancient psalmist's words echo, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." These are not just words of comfort, but a declaration of identity that goes deeper than what you do or what others say. You begin to realize that your value is not a currency to be earned, but an inheritance to be received. Your existence itself is a statement of worth, a living answer to the question of whether your life matters. The shepherd delights in your uniqueness, not despite your flaws, but through them, using every imperfection as part of the story he is writing through you. The moments when you felt overlooked or unimportant become, in his hands, raw material for grace and growth. Alongside this assurance of value, you are invited to discover purpose, not as a rigid assignment, but as a journey of becoming. The Proverbs offer quiet wisdom. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Your calling is less about achieving a specific role and more about becoming fully yourself, living in harmony with the gifts, passions, and burdens you carry. Some days your purpose is clear and compelling. Other days it is simply to be present, to show kindness, to trust that even small acts are woven into a greater design. As you reflect, you notice how the search for meaning has shaped your path, the choices you have made, the dreams you have pursued, the regrets and redirections that have taught you what truly matters. Even the waiting, the wandering, the times of doubt and frustration have become part of the tapestry. The shepherd does not waste anything. He redeems every experience, using each one to lead you closer to who you are meant to be. In the stories of wisdom and praise, you find companions for this journey, those who questioned and struggled, who wondered if their lives made a difference. You hear their voices in the Psalms. What is mankind that you are mindful of them, human beings that you care for them? The answer, written in every sunrise and every act of mercy, is simple and profound. You matter, not for what you can achieve, but for who you are, and for the story being told through your life. The shepherd invites you to embrace your identity, not with arrogance, but with humility and gratitude. You learn to celebrate the ways you are different, to honor your strengths, and offer your weaknesses as spaces for grace. You begin to see purpose not as a destination, but as a way of traveling, walking each day with intention, openness, and trust. Even when the path is unclear, you are not lost. You are guided by a wisdom that knows your name and has written your days with love. In this light, your life becomes a reflection of the shepherd's goodness. The meaning you seek is not hidden, but revealed in every ordinary moment, every act of kindness, every step taken in faith. The journey itself is sacred, and you walk it knowing that you are valued, called, and cherished, forever held in the heart of the one who dreamed you into being. At some point in every life, trust is fractured. The gentle thread of connection, woven through shared words and silent understanding, is snapped by betrayal. Sometimes it arrives as a sudden blow, a secret revealed, a promise broken, a friend who turns away when you need them most. Other times, it comes quietly, the slow erosion of loyalty as priorities shift and old bonds loosen. The pain of betrayal settles deep, carrying not just the ache of loss, but the sting of disillusionment. How could someone you welcomed into your heart become the source of your greatest hurt? The world around you urges self-protection, a hardening of the heart, a tightening of boundaries against future pain. Resentment grows like a thicket, thorny, persistent, offering a false sense of control. The memory of the wound replays in your mind, sharpening into anger or quietly settling into sadness. You find yourself building walls, rehearsing what you would say if ever given the chance, clinging to the idea that the only way to stay safe is to never trust so deeply again. But in the stillness, you hear another invitation. The shepherd, familiar with wounds and the bitterness of abandonment, does not ignore your pain or minimize your disappointment. Instead, he sits with you in the ashes of trust lost, listening to the details of your story, the names and memories you can't quite release. There's no rush, no demand to move on before you are ready. He acknowledges your hurt, letting your anger and sorrow breathe. As you linger here, a new possibility slowly unfolds. The ancient stories and psalms are full of those who have been betrayed by friends, by family, even by their own desires. These stories do not hide the pain or gloss over the reality of injustice, but woven through them is the recurring theme of forgiveness, not as denial, but as an act of radical freedom. You realize that forgiveness is not forgetting or excusing what was done, but choosing, little by little, to release your grip on the right to punish or to replay the injury. The shepherd teaches forgiveness not as a weakness, but as the strongest choice you can make. He reminds you of his own journey, wounded, misunderstood, abandoned by those closest to him, and yet responding with grace, never allowing the poison of bitterness to take root. Forgiveness in this light is not a one-time act, but a practice, a series of small, daily decisions to let go, to pray for healing, to hope for restoration even when it seems impossible. You discover that forgiveness is as much for your own sake as for the one who hurt you. Each time you release a fragment of the anger, the burden grows lighter. Your heart finds room to hope again, to trust that not all people will wound you, that goodness can still grow in the scarred places. The shepherd's presence becomes your strength, offering new vision and new possibilities. In his care, you learn to mourn what is lost and also to bless what remains, to remember that your identity is not defined by the betrayal, but by the love that surrounds you still. Over time, forgiveness transforms your pain into wisdom. You become more discerning, able to love others without naivety, able to set healthy boundaries without closing your heart completely. You realize that letting go of vengeance is not about surrendering justice, but about trusting the shepherd with your story, allowing him to bring about the healing and redemption you cannot achieve alone. Sometimes, forgiveness means reconciliation. Other times, it is the quiet work of letting go, choosing peace over the endless cycle of hurt. Either way, you walk lighter, free from the heavy armor of self-protection, able to open yourself again to the risks and rewards of relationship. The scars remain, reminders of what you have survived, but they no longer define or limit you. And so, in the presence of the shepherd, you keep choosing the way of forgiveness. It is not easy, nor is it always quick, but it is the only way forward, a path that turns wounds into wisdom, that allows your heart to remain open to joy and belonging, that trusts in a future where love is possible again. As you walk this path, you find that you are never alone. The shepherd is always there, guiding, healing, and renewing your spirit, teaching you to move forward with hope, unburdened by the shadows of betrayal. There comes a point along every winding road when you begin to hunger for more than just comfort or relief. You long for understanding, for wisdom that guides you through choices both great and small. The ache of betrayal, the turbulence of storms, the confusion of wandering, they all shape the heart. Yet it is wisdom that gives meaning to the journey and steadiness to each step. The ancient words of Proverbs call out with a voice both gentle and clear, offering counsel for the days ahead, shining light on the path toward maturity and peace. You remember how easily fear can sway your decisions, how quickly anxiety can crowd out clarity. The Proverbs teach that wisdom is not born from panic or impulse, but from a posture of listening, of slowing down enough to pay attention to the world, to your own spirit, and most importantly, to the quiet guidance of the shepherd. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Wisdom is not the avoidance of difficulty, but the courage to meet life honestly, to seek counsel, and to wait for direction rather than rushing toward every beckoning distraction. With each new dawn, you are invited to cultivate discernment, a careful weighing of motives and consequences, a willingness to seek understanding before acting. The Proverbs remind you that the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Wisdom listens to warning signs, values the lessons of experience, and seeks out the company of those who can offer honest feedback. You learn that you don't have to face every challenge alone. Humility opens you to receive guidance, and courage helps you follow through even when it is difficult. Yet wisdom is not just knowledge, but the willingness to live what you learn. It is patience in the face of frustration, restraint in moments of anger, generosity in times of scarcity. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. The wise do not let bitterness or envy take root. They nurture their inner life, making space for reflection, gratitude, and kindness. Even when the world seems unjust or opportunities seem scarce, you are called to respond with integrity, to choose honesty when deception is easier, to forgive when resentment beckons, to stand firm when others drift. The journey toward maturity is not without its stumbles. The Proverbs acknowledge the reality of failure and correction. Do not despise the Lord's discipline, and do not resent his rebuke, because the Lord disciplines those he loves. You learn that growth comes not just from comfort, but from being stretched, challenged, and at times redirected. Each mistake becomes an opportunity for learning. Each moment of discipline a sign that you are loved enough to be shaped into something greater. Wisdom is not threatened by correction. It welcomes it, knowing that the shepherd's guidance is always for your good. Over time, you begin to see that wisdom is less about clever answers and more about the quiet strength to walk steadily, even when the way is unclear. It is humility that admits need, curiosity that keeps asking questions, faithfulness that continues when inspiration fades. The Proverbs encourage perseverance. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. You find comfort in this counsel, not a promise that every step will be easy, but a reassurance that every step can have meaning. Maturity reveals itself not in dramatic gestures, but in the quiet choices you make each day. You begin to treat others with gentleness, to speak truth with love, to manage your resources with wisdom, to honor your commitments even when no one is watching. The shepherd delights in this growth, guiding you gently but firmly, celebrating every small step toward greater understanding and deeper trust. In time, you come to see wisdom not as a destination, but as a journey, a continual unfolding, a series of choices that shape your character and your destiny. You rest in the knowledge that you are not expected to be perfect, only willing to learn, to change, and to keep returning to the source of all wisdom. The shepherd walks with you, offering guidance at every turn, helping you to become not just older, but truly wiser, someone who lives with integrity, courage, and a heart open to all that life brings. As you travel farther down the path of wisdom and maturity, your understanding of happiness begins to change. No longer does joy seem like something reserved only for the lucky or the accomplished, or something that waits at the end of a list of achievements. Instead, happiness becomes something quieter, deeper, a way of being that is available even in the most ordinary or difficult circumstances. You start to realize that the world's definition of happiness, success, comfort, recognition, or fleeting pleasures can never satisfy the deeper hunger of the soul. One day, you find yourself returning to the teaching spoken long ago on a mountainside, where the shepherd gathered his followers and described a happiness unlike anything they expected. The words still carry their gentle paradox. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. With every line, a new vision of joy unfolds, one that is not bound to circumstance, but rooted in the way you choose to see, to live, to love. This is a happiness that begins with humility. Instead of striving for the top or clinging to your rights, you discover a quiet freedom in admitting your need, in letting go of pride, in opening your heart to receive help and grace. The poor in spirit are not empty, they are ready to be filled. Their happiness does not depend on what they have, but on their willingness to trust that all they truly need will be provided. There is comfort in this kind of happiness for those who grieve, for those who have felt loss and disappointment. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. In a world that rushes to numb or dismiss pain, you learn that your tears are not wasted. The shepherd draws near to those who mourn, turning sorrow into compassion and loss into a deeper appreciation for the gifts that remain. True joy grows out of honest sorrow, because it is there that you are met by a comfort stronger than denial or distraction. Gentleness, too, is redefined as strength. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. The meek are not passive or weak. They are those who choose patience over aggression, forgiveness over vengeance, and kindness over self-assertion. Their happiness is not built on dominating others, but on making peace, healing wounds, and offering welcome. In their lives, you see a quiet authority, a resilience that does not need to prove itself, because it is grounded in a love that cannot be taken away. The hunger and thirst for what is right, this too becomes a source of happiness. Instead of settling for half-truths or easy comforts, you begin to long for justice, mercy, and a world where love prevails. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Your desire for goodness is not a flaw, but a sign that your heart is being shaped by a higher standard. In the pursuit of what is true and just, you find a satisfaction deeper than any fleeting pleasure. You also learn that real happiness is found in the practice of mercy and purity. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Mercy is the decision to forgive and to understand, to meet others with the same grace you have received. Purity is not the absence of struggle, but the continual turning of your heart toward what is good, refusing to let cynicism or bitterness cloud your vision. The reward for these things is not just future blessing, but a present sense of clarity and closeness to the shepherd, who calls you to share in his way of life. And then, perhaps most surprisingly, happiness is found in making peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. The world may celebrate conflict and division, but the deepest joy belongs to those who bring healing, who build bridges, who sow seeds of reconciliation. In their hands, the work of restoration becomes a source of lasting fulfillment, a testament to the love that is always stronger than hate. As you reflect on these truths, you realize that happiness is not something you chase, but something you cultivate, a posture of humility, gratitude, and openness to the work of the shepherd in your life. Even when the path is difficult, when misunderstanding or even persecution arises, you remember his promise. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. This is a happiness that no disappointment can steal, a joy that grows from the roots of humility, compassion, and a pure heart. You carry these lessons with you, letting them transform the way you see yourself and the world. You seek not only your own blessing, but to be a blessing to others, to offer comfort, to show mercy, to make peace wherever you go. And as you walk this path, the happiness you discover is not fragile or fleeting, but a wellspring that refreshes you and those around you, a quiet strength that endures through every season of the journey. In the quiet reflection that follows a new understanding of happiness, you come to realize that true freedom is found not only in receiving comfort or blessing, but in releasing the burdens that have weighed down your heart for so long. There is a particular heaviness that settles in the soul when old wounds are left unhealed, when resentments are stored away, and grudges quietly shape the contours of your days. The shadows of the past linger, sometimes invisible, yet ever present, coloring your responses, narrowing your view of what is possible, subtly robbing your sense of peace. It is in this tender and honest place that the shepherd's voice invites you to a deeper kind of letting go, the grace of forgiveness. Not the shallow forgiveness of empty words or forced forgetfulness, but the genuine act of opening your heart, of setting yourself and others free from debts that cannot be repaid. The words of the ancient prayer, offered simply and sincerely, become a lifeline. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. The rhythm of these words echoes through your days, gently loosening the knots of anger and disappointment that have formed over time. Forgiveness, you learn, is a daily practice. It is rarely swift or easy. More often, it is a gradual unburdening, a choice made again and again to relinquish your claim on past wrongs. Sometimes it is as small as a silent decision to stop replaying a painful memory, or as large as a courageous step toward reconciliation. Each act of forgiveness becomes a key, unlocking doors that once kept you trapped in cycles of regret or bitterness. As you pray the words of the Our Father, you begin to sense how forgiveness transforms your relationship with both others and yourself. You see that holding on to offenses ultimately limits your capacity to love and to be loved. The grudges you keep, the judgments you make, all weigh most heavily on your own spirit, keeping you tethered to places and moments that can no longer be changed. Forgiveness is not about pretending that hurt never happened or excusing the harm that was done. It is about choosing to move forward, to open space for new growth, and to trust that even pain can be transformed. The shepherd's example becomes your guide. His forgiveness, given freely and without condition, is not based on worthiness, but on grace. He meets you in your own moments of failure with mercy, never shaming or condemning, but inviting you to begin again. In accepting this forgiveness for yourself, you find the strength to offer it to others, not as a transaction, but as a gift. The more you practice, the more you find your heart growing lighter, your outlook more hopeful, your relationships marked by kindness rather than suspicion. Daily prayer grounds this practice, offering a place to lay down every disappointment and betrayal. The prayer becomes both a confession and a commitment, a way to name what is broken and to invite healing, a promise to release others as you yourself are released. In the gentle repetition of the words, you notice the slow but steady work of transformation. Wounds begin to close. The walls you have built for protection soften and become bridges. The burdens of the past gradually slip from your shoulders, replaced by a quiet confidence that you are not defined by what has been done to you or by your own mistakes. Forgiveness is not a forgetting, but a remembering transformed, a way of carrying the lessons of pain without letting them become chains. It gives you room to love again, to trust that new beginnings are possible, and to believe that peace can be restored even in places that once seemed ruined by conflict or disappointment. The shepherd walks this journey with you, never rushing or demanding, always patient as you take each step toward freedom. As the days pass, you find forgiveness becoming less of a duty and more of a gift, one that you give as much for your own healing as for anyone else's. You carry less anger and more compassion. You see others not only as the sum of their mistakes, but as fellow travelers, wounded and hopeful, learning, as you are, to live in grace. The words of the Our Father continue to shape you, each petition a reminder that forgiveness is both a challenge and a promise. That in letting go you make room for joy, for restoration, and for the new life the shepherd is always ready to give. There is a subtle anxiety that weaves its way through the ordinary hours of every day. A persistent question, quiet but insistent. What will happen tomorrow? This question often lurks behind decisions, behind planning and striving, behind the lists you make and the preparations you repeat. It whispers in the night and hums in the background of every achievement, reminding you how much of life is uncertain, how much lies just beyond the reach of your influence. The myth of control is alluring, promising security if only you can think far enough ahead, plan thoroughly enough, and anticipate every twist and turn. But with time, you come to recognize the weight of this illusion. Trying to grasp every possible outcome, to anticipate every challenge, leaves you weary, your spirit stretched thin by the tension of what-ifs and the fear of what might never come. You become preoccupied with the future, missing the quiet gifts of the present. Joy gives way to vigilance, gratitude becomes calculation, and peace is replaced by the ceaseless drive to manage life's uncertainties. The shepherd, ever attentive, offers a different way, a gentler invitation to trust, to let go of the need for exhaustive control, to surrender the anxious need to know and guarantee every detail. You remember the words spoken in the Sermon on the Mount, words that still breathe calm into restless hearts. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. These are not words of carelessness, but of wise release, a recognition that peace is not found in mastery over circumstances, but in trust that you are never alone in facing them. To trust in this way is an act of humility, an admission that your vision is limited and your strength finite. It is also a step into freedom, an opening of your hands to receive the day as it comes, with all its surprises, its disappointments, and its unlooked-for joys. You begin to practice a new rhythm, meeting each sunrise with curiosity instead of dread, greeting the unknown not as an enemy, but as a canvas for the shepherd's ongoing care. This trust does not mean passivity. It does not ask you to ignore responsibilities or avoid planning altogether. Rather, it frees you from the illusion that your security depends solely on your ability to foresee and prevent every hardship. The shepherd's promise is that you are cared for in both the large and small, the obvious and the hidden, the dramatic and the mundane. You find courage to take the next step without demanding to see the entire road. You accept that some answers will come only in their own time. You learn to recognize the daily bread, the small, sufficient gifts that come as you need them. Instead of being consumed by what you lack or what may be missing in the future, you train your heart to notice what is already present. A moment of laughter, a quiet meal, the steady pulse of breath and life. You begin to see that much of your worry is about imagined scenarios, shadows that vanish in the honest light of gratitude and trust. In moments when anxiety rises, you turn again to prayer, laying your fears at the shepherd's feet, asking for the grace to meet today's challenges and for the peace to leave tomorrow in his hands. The ancient Psalms become your companions. Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. And you will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you. These words steady you, anchoring your heart when the winds of uncertainty begin to swirl. Over time, a new calm settles over your days. You find yourself less reactive, less shaken by news or change, more able to respond with gentleness to both hardship and opportunity. You discover that trust is built in small moments. Every time you release a worry, every time you choose gratitude, every time you refuse to let fear steal the beauty of now. You realize finally that life was never meant to be lived in anxious striving for control. The shepherd's presence is your assurance, his care the ground beneath your feet. You can move forward not because you know exactly what the future holds, but because you know who holds you. In this trust, you find a peace that endures, a quietness at the center of your being, a restfulness that remains steady no matter what tomorrow brings. There is a profound reassurance in knowing that you are not wandering through life by chance or abandoned to the shifting winds of fate. As your understanding deepens, you encounter an image that stands at the heart of hope itself. A shepherd who not only cares for the flock, but who calls each one by name, who walks ahead into the unknown, who offers not just protection, but the promise of new life. The teachings found in the Gospel of John illuminate this mystery, painting a portrait of Christ as both the Good Shepherd and the open door, inviting all who are weary to enter into a freedom and belonging that cannot be found elsewhere. You begin to sense the significance of being known in such a personal way. This shepherd is no distant authority, no hired hand uninterested in your struggles or indifferent to your wounds. He is intimately aware of every journey, every fear, every hope that lives in your heart. I am the good shepherd, he declares. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. There is a gentleness in this knowing, a deep, abiding care that meets you in your uniqueness and never mistakes you for just another face in the crowd. With every step, the shepherd leads not with force, but with invitation. His voice is one you come to recognize, distinct from the voices of fear or accusation, stronger than the din of distraction. He calls you out of old habits and tired cycles, guiding you toward open fields and fresh beginnings. When you stray, he searches. When you falter, he lifts you up. When you are wounded, he tends your injuries with patience and compassion. You realize that to be led by such a shepherd is not to be controlled, but to be liberated, to discover new possibilities, to risk new dreams, to trust that your path has meaning and purpose. The image of Christ as the door adds another layer to this invitation. I am the door. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. In these words, you hear the promise of access, not just to safety, but to abundance. You are welcomed not only into protection, but into a life that is full, vibrant, and unbounded by the limitations you once accepted. The shepherd does not merely offer escape from danger. He opens the way to joy, growth, and the discovery of your true self. This door is open wide. There is no secret password, no exclusive entry reserved for the best or the strongest. The shepherd welcomes all who are willing to come, those burdened by guilt, those weary from striving, those who have lost their way in the wilderness of disappointment or doubt. The flock is made up of the unlikely and the overlooked, each one drawn by the promise of grace and belonging. In this gathering, you find not only acceptance, but a shared sense of purpose, a community shaped not by sameness, but by the shepherd's love. As you follow, you begin to notice horizons expanding, new dreams awaken, old wounds begin to heal in the light of unconditional love. The journey is not always easy, but you move forward with a growing confidence that you are never alone. The shepherd's presence becomes your security, his voice your guide through confusion, his promise your anchor in uncertainty. You step into each day with a quiet boldness, knowing that whatever you face, you are accompanied by the one who knows you fully and loves you without reserve. You realize, too, that this new life is not just about personal peace or inner satisfaction. The shepherd calls you to join him in caring for others, to become, in some way, a shepherd yourself, watching over those entrusted to your care, offering welcome and kindness, helping others find the same open door that changed your world. The freedom you receive becomes a freedom you are compelled to share, a testimony not of your own goodness, but of the shepherd's unwavering grace. And so you continue, following the voice that knows your name, trusting the door that remains forever open, discovering day by day that new life is not something you have to earn, but a gift that waits for you whenever you are ready to receive it. In the presence of the Good Shepherd, you find not only the path home, but a whole new way to live. A life marked by courage, joy, and the quiet certainty that you will never be left behind. There is a quiet difference between merely existing and truly living, between surviving each day and waking to the fullness of life that is possible. For many, the routines of life, work, obligations, relationships, hopes, and disappointments become a cycle of striving and coping, a search for moments of respite in a world that rarely slows down. Yet in the company of the Good Shepherd, as you listen more closely to his promises, you discover an invitation that transcends the boundaries of mere survival. "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full," he declares, a promise of abundance, of a richness that goes far deeper than material comfort or fleeting pleasure. True freedom, you begin to realize, is not just the absence of constraints, nor is it the unchecked ability to do as you wish. It is the steady, unshakable knowledge that you are held, loved, and chosen. It is the awareness that your worth is not tied to your performance or achievements, and that your security does not rise and fall with changing circumstances. This fullness of life is not the kind of abundance that the world measures in wealth, status, or accolades. Instead, it is the profound inner wealth that grows from belonging, from purpose, from being rooted in a love that will never let you go. Living with abundance means letting go of the fear that there will never be enough. Enough time, enough love, enough meaning. The shepherd leads you gently away from the mindset of scarcity, away from the anxious hoarding of resources or affections, away from the competition that keeps you looking over your shoulder. In its place grows a quiet trust that you will always have what you truly need, and that what you receive is meant to be shared. You find yourself growing more generous, not only with your possessions, but with your time, your attention, your forgiveness, your encouragement. This abundance is a freedom from the tyranny of comparison, the endless measuring of your life against others. You are no longer trapped by the need to prove yourself or to earn approval. The shepherd's love becomes your foundation, your identity, your peace. Even in the face of difficulty, you find resources within that surprise you, resilience that carries you through hard days, joy that persists in sorrow, hope that endures beyond disappointment. These are gifts the shepherd imparts, not just for moments of celebration, but for every season of the journey. You begin to notice that fullness is found in unexpected places, It is in laughter shared with a friend, in the courage to forgive a long-held hurt, in the quiet satisfaction of serving another without need for recognition. It is in the ability to savor the present moment, to see beauty where others rush past, to rest without guilt, and to work with a sense of calling rather than compulsion. Each day becomes an opportunity to practice this abundance, to see how much life has to offer when you live from a place of gratitude and trust. The freedom Christ offers is not escapism. It is engagement with the world, with open eyes and an open heart. You do not retreat from the pain and brokenness around you, but face it with compassion and hope, knowing that the Shepherd is at work to bring healing and renewal. You discover that your life, lived in abundance, becomes a source of blessing for others, a wellspring that overflows into your family, your community, your world. As this fullness grows within you, you realize that nothing, not even hardship, loss, or uncertainty, can diminish its strength. The source of your abundance is not external. It flows from the Shepherd's presence, from the certainty that you are His and He is yours. You find yourself lighter, freer, less weighed down by fear or resentment. The habits of survival, clinging, striving, worrying, give way to habits of joy, peace, and generosity. And so you continue, each day learning to live with open hands and an open heart. You trust that whatever you face, the Shepherd's promise remains: life to the full, a freedom and fullness that nothing can steal away. You walk forward with a quiet confidence, ready to meet each new day, not as one who is merely getting by, but as one who is truly, gloriously alive. As you journey deeper into the heart of abundant life, the character of your relationship with the Shepherd changes. No longer is he simply a distant ruler, a figure to be obeyed or feared. Gradually, as trust grows and old images of judgment fade, you discover something astonishing. You are being invited into a relationship of genuine love and friendship, one that is both tender and bold, full of warmth and freedom. The ancient words once spoken by the Shepherd himself begin to echo with new clarity. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. To be called a friend by the one who shaped galaxies and who holds the universe in his hands is a mystery almost too wonderful to grasp. Yet this is the invitation extended to you, not merely to follow, but to share in a deep, ongoing communion. You begin to realize that friendship with God is rooted in honesty and trust. You are free to bring your true self into this relationship, your hopes and dreams, your worries and failures, your laughter and your tears. There is no need for pretense or self-protection. You are welcomed just as you are, loved in your imperfection, cherished in your searching. The Shepherd listens not only to your prayers, but to the silent longings of your heart, understanding even what you cannot put into words. Over time, your prayers become less formal and more like conversations with a trusted companion. You talk about your day, your joys and disappointments, your ambitions and your fears. You discover that God is interested in every detail of your life, no matter how small. When you rejoice, He rejoices with you. When you are broken-hearted, He is there to comfort and heal. The relationship becomes a two-way exchange, not just you speaking, but also learning to listen, to sense the gentle guidance, encouragement, and wisdom that only a true friend can offer. This closeness brings a new kind of confidence. You are no longer driven by anxiety about measuring up or about making mistakes. You rest in the assurance that you are accepted and safe, not because of your flawless performance, but because you are deeply loved. The image of God as a stern judge is replaced by the picture of a loving Father, one who delights in you, who celebrates your growth, and who gently corrects you, not to condemn, but to guide you into all that you are meant to be. Trust becomes second nature in this friendship. You find it easier to place your fears, uncertainties, and even your doubts in His hands. The shepherd is patient, never rushing you, never shaming you for struggling or questioning. Instead, He invites your honesty and welcomes your questions, knowing that genuine relationship is built on mutual trust and openness. Your dreams, once guarded or hidden, are now safe to share, and trusted to one who understands the deepest desires of your soul and whose plans for you are always rooted in love. As your relationship matures, you notice a quiet transformation in how you relate to others. The love and friendship you receive from God overflow into your friendships with people. You become more compassionate, more forgiving, more willing to listen and support without judgment. You find yourself less isolated, more connected, not only to the shepherd, but to a larger community of those who are also learning the joy of this divine friendship. And so, each day becomes an adventure in intimacy and trust. You walk in the company of one who knows you better than you know yourself, who delights in your presence, and who is always close, whether in moments of joy or in seasons of difficulty. The boundaries that once defined religion fall away, replaced by a living, breathing relationship that brings color and depth to everything you do. In this friendship, you discover that God's love is not just an idea, but a reality that shapes your thoughts, your choices, and your future. You are never alone, never without someone to celebrate with or to lean on. The shepherd walks with you, not as a distant authority, but as the closest of friends and the most loving of fathers, faithful, attentive, and always ready to lead you into new depths of joy and belonging. There are moments in every journey when words of comfort and gestures of friendship, even the strength of our own resolve, are simply not enough. When your heart is stretched to its limits, when weariness or loss weighs heavier than you imagined possible, it is natural to wonder where to turn, how to carry on. Even those who have learned trust, who have discovered friendship with the shepherd, come to places where their resources fail, where their prayers seem thin, and silence feels overwhelming. It is in these moments that the promise of a helper, a comforter who comes not from within, but from beyond, takes on a power and sweetness that changes everything. You remember the words spoken by Jesus to His closest friends as He prepared to leave them. "I will ask the Father, and He will give you another advocate to help you and be with you forever, the Spirit of truth. I will not leave you as orphans, I will come to you." In these words is a promise that no one is ever truly alone. The Holy Spirit, invisible yet unfailingly present, is sent to dwell within, to bring comfort, guidance, and strength when human will and understanding fall short. This Comforter does not wait until you are strong or full of faith. Instead, He comes quietly, often in the darkest places, when tears will not stop, when hope has flickered out, when the next step seems impossible. You may not always notice His arrival. Sometimes comfort is a gentle peace settling over your chaos, or a sudden clarity that wasn't there before. Sometimes it's the unexplainable courage to face another day, the still small voice whispering that you are loved and held, even when you have no words left to pray. The work of the Spirit is mysterious, yet unmistakable. He brings to mind truths you thought you'd forgotten, illuminating the promises spoken long ago. He reminds you of who you are and whose you are, planting hope where there was only despair, breathing life into dreams you thought were dead. In times of temptation or confusion, He is the gentle nudge that points you toward wisdom, the persistent pull away from danger, the stirring to seek counsel or rest. Often, the Spirit's comfort arrives through others, a word spoken at just the right time, a hand on your shoulder, a song that reaches deep into your heart and reminds you that you are not forgotten. You begin to recognize that supernatural help does not always look like a miracle, but can come through the simple presence of kindness, through the community the Spirit weaves together. You learn to be open to these unexpected gifts, to receive the encouragement that comes when you are most in need. There are times, too, when the Spirit's support comes as power beyond your own, a resolve to forgive when you cannot muster it alone, an ability to persevere in hardship, a burst of creativity or understanding that cannot be explained by effort or talent. You discover new capacities to love, to serve, to endure. What once felt impossible becomes possible, not because you are enough, but because you are being filled with a strength that is not your own. Prayer in the Spirit's presence takes on new meaning. Sometimes you cannot find the words for what you feel, yet the Spirit intercedes with groanings too deep for words. You sense that your pain is understood at a level deeper than language, that you are being carried when you cannot walk, that the Helper is both closer and more powerful than you ever imagined. Over time, you learn to expect this help, to trust that you will not be abandoned in your hour of need. The Spirit is not a distant force, but a companion, a source of wisdom, joy, and peace that surpasses understanding. Even in the most ordinary days, you sense His prompting, leading you to kindness, to humility, to acts of love you might not have chosen alone. You see His fingerprints in the growth of your own character, in the healing of old wounds, in the resilience that surprises you again and again. The promise of the Spirit is the promise that you are never orphaned, never left to your own devices. No matter how deep your pain, how overwhelming your weakness, or how great your questions, the Comforter is with you, teaching, guiding, strengthening, consoling. In His presence, you find courage you did not know you had, peace that defies reason, and hope that rises even in the most impossible places. This is the supernatural support that sustains you, the breath of God Himself at work in your spirit, making all things new. There are quiet battles that shape your days, struggles not with circumstances or other people, but within your own heart. Fear takes many forms: worry about the future, anxiety over your worth, the dread of repeating old mistakes. Alongside fear walks its silent companions: guilt for what you have done, shame for what you wish you had not been. Sometimes these inner enemies feel more relentless than any storm or outer trial, whispering that you are unworthy, unloved, or too flawed to hope for anything new. Yet into this shadowed landscape a different message begins to ring, first as a whisper, then as a declaration that changes everything. The Apostle Paul, whose own journey was marked by dramatic failures and profound transformation, writes words of hope that echo through generations. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. These are not just words for others, they are a promise for you, an invitation to step out from under the weight of your past and into a new life defined not by what has been, but by what is possible in the Shepherd's love. You discover that you are not doomed to remain a prisoner of your fears or to carry guilt like a permanent mark. Through the shepherd's sacrifice and Paul's teachings, you learn that forgiveness is not just an external act, but an internal reality. Your debts are paid, your mistakes are not held against you, and you are invited to accept, perhaps for the first time, that you are truly free. There is no need to punish yourself endlessly, no requirement to prove your worth. The old ways, self-judgment, cycles of regret, desperate efforts to earn belonging, are gently but firmly set aside. Paul's letters overflow with the assurance that you are chosen, beloved, accepted, not in spite of your brokenness, but with full knowledge of it. There is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, he writes, and you feel the weight begin to lift. These words do not mean that you ignore your failures or deny your weakness, but that you view them in the light of a love greater than your shortcomings. Shame loses its grip as you begin to accept yourself as you are, knowing that growth and healing are always possible. The journey of overcoming fear, guilt, and shame is rarely instantaneous. It is a daily act of remembering who you are and whose you are. You learn to recognize the voices that try to pull you back into old patterns and to answer them with truth. I am a new creation. I am forgiven. I am loved. When anxiety rises or memories haunt you, you return to the shepherd's presence, letting him remind you of your value and your place in his story. Paul's words are full of practical wisdom for this journey. Do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You realize that your thoughts matter, that you can choose which messages to believe. Slowly, you train your mind to focus on what is good, pure, and true, to replace self-condemnation with gratitude, worry with trust, fear with courage. You find strength in community, in sharing your struggles with others who are also learning to live from their true identity, supporting one another with kindness and understanding. As this transformation deepens, you discover that your history no longer controls your destiny. The story of your life is not written only in moments of failure, but in the grace that carries you through, in the courage to begin again, in the victories, large and small, over voices that once held you captive. You learn to forgive yourself, to embrace your humanity, and to walk in the freedom that comes from being fully known and fully loved. The shepherd walks this path with you, patient and gentle, celebrating each step toward freedom. You realize that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward anyway, trusting that you are never alone. The victory over guilt, shame, and fear is not just a change in circumstance, but a new way of living, a life marked by confidence, joy, and an enduring sense of belonging. And so you keep moving forward, remembering with every breath that you are a new creation, redeemed and set free. The past loses its hold, and the future opens wide with possibility. In this freedom, you discover a peace and hope that nothing can take away, a quiet victory that grows each day as you learn to live in the light of the shepherd's unwavering love. There is a kind of fulfillment that eludes those who chase after their own satisfaction, a richness that cannot be bought or hoarded, but is discovered in the gentle act of giving yourself away. As your journey unfolds, you begin to sense that the deepest joys are not found in having, but in sharing, in becoming, quietly and humbly, a vessel through which the shepherd's love can flow into the world around you. This is not the service that grows from duty or the desire to impress, but the kind that blossoms from gratitude. You look back and see how much has been given to you: forgiveness where you expected judgment, comfort in your darkest nights, hope that arrived when you were lost. Moved by these gifts, your heart naturally leans toward generosity, not out of obligation, but as a joyful response to grace received. You find that true humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. It is the freedom to set aside the constant need for recognition or control, to notice the needs of others, to be present and attentive wherever you are. There is a quiet delight in small acts of kindness, a word of encouragement to someone who is discouraged, a helping hand when no one else is watching, a listening ear when a friend needs to talk. These moments may pass unnoticed by the world, but they carry an eternal weight. The joy of serving grows as you realize that you are not responsible for changing the world on your own. The shepherd's love is inexhaustible, and your role is simply to let it pass through you. One conversation, one gesture, one act of patience or generosity at a time. You begin to see every interaction as an opportunity, a divine appointment, where the love you have received can be offered again. The pressure to be spectacular fades, replaced by the contentment of being faithful and present. This life of service does not mean the absence of boundaries or the neglect of your own needs. The shepherd himself withdrew to quiet places to rest, reminding you that you are called to give from a place of abundance, not exhaustion. Humility allows you to receive as well as to give, to ask for help when you need it, and to rejoice when others serve you in turn. In this mutual care, a true community is formed, one in which each person's gifts and needs are honored, and no one is left behind. As you serve, you notice a change within yourself. The things that once brought anxiety or insecurity lose their hold. Your heart grows softer, your priorities shift, your capacity for joy deepens. You discover satisfaction not in applause, but in knowing you have brightened someone's day, made a burden lighter, or helped someone remember that they are loved. Even the smallest acts are seeds, and you trust that the shepherd will bring fruit from what you offer, often in ways you will never see. There is, too, a deep sense of belonging that comes from serving. You are connected to a long line of those who have poured out their lives in quiet faithfulness, who have chosen humility and compassion over selfishness and pride. Their stories encourage you to keep going, to trust that no act of love is wasted, to believe that your own life too can be part of something larger than yourself. And in all of this, you find the secret of lasting joy, that as you pour out, you are filled. As you bless others, you yourself are blessed. Service becomes not a burden, but a source of life, a rhythm of receiving and giving, of gratitude and generosity that leads you ever deeper into the heart of the shepherd. You wake each day eager to share what you have received, confident that in this self-giving, your own joy will overflow, and the love that has transformed you will touch the world again and again. Gratitude is a quiet but mighty force, a strength that grows not in ease but in adversity, not in the sunlight but in the middle of life's storms. As you travel farther along your journey, you begin to see how the shepherd's invitation to a grateful heart is not simply a call to be polite or optimistic, but a secret to survival, a source of resilience that can steady you through even the harshest seasons. There are days when the winds howl and the sky turns gray, when loss or disappointment seem to overshadow every good thing. In these moments, it is easy for the mind to dwell on what is missing, to count what has gone wrong, to let sorrow or frustration drown out the memory of brighter times. Yet it is here, in the darkest valleys, that the practice of gratitude becomes most vital. Gratitude does not ask you to deny pain or pretend that suffering isn't real. Instead, it gently teaches you to look again, to seek out traces of goodness that persist, like wildflowers blooming along the edge of a storm. You learn to name even the smallest gifts: a breath drawn in peace, a single ray of sun breaking through the clouds, the warmth of a friend's smile, the comfort of a favorite song. You realize that the very act of looking for these blessings changes you. Your perspective begins to shift. Fear loosens its grip, and the noise of complaint loses its hold on your mind. Gratitude doesn't erase hardship, but it brings a lightness, an ability to see beyond the present trouble to the quiet faithfulness that has carried you this far. This strength of heart is not found in grand gestures, but in the simple discipline of noticing. Each morning becomes an invitation to start anew, to look for goodness in unlikely places. You discover that the shepherd walks with you even in the storm, whispering reminders of past mercies, sending moments of comfort at just the right time. Sometimes gratitude comes in hindsight, the realization after the clouds part that you were never truly alone, that help came in forms you didn't expect. As you make gratitude a habit, you find it becomes a shield, deflecting the arrows of cynicism, self-pity, and despair. On days when your hands are empty and your heart is heavy, gratitude gives you something to hold on to. It keeps hope alive, nurturing a sense of wonder that cannot be extinguished by hardship. It teaches you to trust that every season, even the hardest, contains seeds of blessing. You notice, too, that gratitude is contagious. When you express thanks, even for small things, you invite others to look for goodness in their own lives. A grateful word can break the spell of negativity in a conversation, reminding those around you of the beauty and hope that remain. Your life becomes a testimony, not of perfection or unbroken happiness, but of perseverance, faith, and the stubborn joy that grows in the soil of thankfulness. In the end, gratitude is both a shield and a compass, guiding you back to what is true, keeping you rooted when the winds threaten to uproot you. It grounds you in the present moment, teaching you to find God's gifts in the here and now, rather than waiting for some distant future. You learn that the shepherd's faithfulness is never absent, even on the hardest days. Each act of gratitude is a step forward, a choice to trust, a declaration that light can be found and joy can be kindled, even in the midst of darkness. With every storm you weather, gratitude grows stronger within you, becoming a steady flame that will not be extinguished. It is this flame that keeps your heart resilient, your eyes open to beauty, and your spirit anchored in hope, no matter what trials may come. And as you look back on the journey, you realize that gratitude has not only helped you survive, it has taught you how to truly live. There is a kind of joy that endures even when circumstances refuse to cooperate, a joy that persists through uncertainty, disappointment, and the ordinary struggles of daily life. As you journey with the shepherd, you gradually learn that this joy does not depend on getting what you want or having everything go your way. It is not tied to the rise and fall of fortunes, to recognition or the approval of others, or to the absence of difficulty. Instead, it wells up from a deeper source, a spring of gladness that is accessible even on the hardest days. You hear echoes of this secret in the words of the Apostle Paul, who wrote from a prison cell not of defeat, but of overflowing gratitude and peace. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. These are not the words of someone untouched by hardship, but of someone who has discovered an unshakable center. Paul speaks of a peace that surpasses all understanding, a calm that defies logic and persists when everything outside seems unstable. Instead, it wells up from a deeper source, a spring of gladness that is accessible even on the hardest days. You hear echoes of this secret in the words of the Apostle Paul, who wrote from a prison cell not of defeat, but of overflowing gratitude and peace. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. These are not the words of someone untouched by hardship, but of someone who has discovered an unshakable center. Paul speaks of a peace that surpasses all understanding, a calm that defies logic and persists when everything outside seems unstable. You begin to see that this joy is not a denial of pain or an act of pretending. Paul's letter to the Philippians is honest about difficulty, about needs and disappointments. Yet he insists that the secret to contentment and joy is found in relationship, not with changing circumstances, but with the shepherd himself. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Joy, then, is not the absence of trouble, but the presence of a sustaining love that is bigger than whatever you face. This is a joy you can practice. You learn to turn your attention away from the things you cannot control, and instead focus on what is good, true, and lovely. Paul urges you to not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Worry and anxiety lose their grip when you bring your needs honestly, repeatedly, into the shepherd's presence. Gratitude softens your heart, prayer steadies your mind, and joy begins to take root even in difficult soil. Over time, you notice the subtle ways joy shifts your perspective. Where once you measured life by visible successes and failures, now you find value in faithfulness, in perseverance, in the quiet strength to love and serve regardless of outcome. You begin to recognize small moments of grace, an encouraging word, a beautiful sunrise, the laughter of a friend, as reminders of the shepherd's care, tokens of joy given not as a reward for perfection, but as gifts to all who are willing to see. You also discover that this joy is meant to be shared. The more you give it away, through encouragement, acts of kindness, and choosing to rejoice with others, the more it multiplies within you. Even in struggle, you become a light for those around you, a living sign that gladness can flourish even in hard places. So you continue, practicing joy as a daily discipline. You rejoice not only in the seasons of abundance, but in the midst of lack, not only in triumph, but in vulnerability, not only in comfort, but also when walking through shadow. You rest in the knowledge that your joy is anchored not in shifting circumstances, but in the unchanging faithfulness of the shepherd who walks beside you. And as you live from this place of joy, you find a peace and contentment that cannot be shaken, a calm and gladness that sustains you no matter what comes. This is the joy that endures, quietly, steadily, and always, regardless of the storms or the sunshine, because it is rooted in love that never fails. As the journey unfolds and you look ahead to all that remains unknown, the temptation to worry about the future can be strong. The world is full of change, dreams fulfilled and dreams deferred, moments of joy mixed with seasons of loss. Yet, in the deepest parts of your heart, you long for a promise that pain will not have the final word, that fear will one day be stilled, that sorrow will give way to unending peace. Into this longing, the shepherd offers words of hope that reach far beyond the limits of your own imagination. The ancient vision in the book of Revelation paints a picture of a world renewed, of every broken thing restored, and every tear wiped away. Here, you are reminded that your story and the story of the world is not destined to end in loss or emptiness. Instead, a day is coming when the burdens you have carried will be lifted, when grief will be replaced with comfort, and every unanswered question will find its resolution in a love that makes all things new. You hear the promise. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. These words are not mere consolation, but a declaration of what is to come, a vision of a world remade, where suffering and fear are banished, where light and goodness have the final say. The shepherd himself stands at the center of this hope, welcoming all who have followed him through valleys and storms, gathering his flock into a place of everlasting belonging. This vision changes how you live in the present. The future is no longer a shadow that looms with threats, but a promise that draws you forward with courage. You realize that each act of kindness, each choice to trust or forgive, each moment of hope sown into the world is a seed of this coming reality. The shepherd's faithfulness in your daily life is a down payment, a first taste of what will one day be true for all creation. You also notice that hope for the future brings comfort to the deepest wounds. When loss or pain threaten to overwhelm you, you return to this vision, allowing it to speak peace over your questions and fears. The assurance of a world without sorrow does not numb you to present struggles, but fills you with resilience, a steady strength to persevere, to keep loving, to keep believing in the goodness that is promised. Even as you wait, you are not alone. The shepherd walks with you every step, reminding you that your place in the story is secure. The end is not despair, but celebration, not silence, but song. Your tears are seen and treasured, and one day each one will be gently wiped away. So you move forward without fear, your heart anchored in the hope of what is to come. You hold to the vision of a new world, a place of healing and reunion, of laughter and peace, where you will be fully known and forever at home. And as you live with this future in view, you discover a freedom and courage that shines even in the darkest night, drawing you onward with the sure promise that the best is yet to come. In the gentle twilight at the close of your journey, you find yourself drawn once again to the warm circle of the fire, the place where it all began. The crackling embers cast a soft glow on familiar faces, and the world outside seems to fade into a quiet hush. Here, after valleys and storms, after victories and failures, you settle into a peace that feels both new and ancient, as if it has been waiting for you all along. You sit in the presence of the shepherd, no longer restless or searching, but anchored by the story you have lived. The burdens that once weighed so heavily have been released, some through tears and struggle, others in quiet moments of surrender. Old fears and regrets no longer cling to your heart. Instead, you are filled with a sense of gratitude for every step, every lesson, every unexpected gift along the path. The rest you find now is not just the relief of exhaustion, but a deep, abiding peace that springs from within, a well of calm that cannot be shaken by the changing winds of life. You see your own reflection in the flames, changed by all that has come before. The pain and confusion, the moments of weakness, the questions and uncertainties, they have all been gathered into something whole. You are not defined by what you have endured, but by the peace you have received and the love that has shaped you. There is a gentle acceptance of your new self, a willingness to embrace both your strengths and your scars. You realize that the journey has not broken you. It has refined you, revealed the steady light that has always glimmered beneath the surface. The shepherd's presence, once something you hoped for, is now a quiet certainty, a companionship that stays, a promise that endures beyond every season. In the glow of the fire, you are able to rest without fear of what tomorrow may bring. The future is held, just as you are held, in hands that do not falter. The past is woven into a tapestry of meaning, each thread contributing to the person you have become. The journey has taught you to let go and to receive, to persevere and to trust, to hope and to forgive. You sit in the warmth of the present moment, no longer striving, but simply being. Around you, others are drawn to the same peace. You see how your journey is part of a larger story, how your rest becomes an invitation to others, a gentle reminder that true peace is possible. The shepherd sits beside each one, meeting them in their exhaustion, offering rest for every weary heart. Together, you form a community of those who have discovered the gift of eternal rest, not as a far-off promise, but as a reality to be entered now. In this sacred space by the fire, the noise of the world grows quiet. The voices of fear and accusation are stilled. You are free to breathe deeply, to savor the goodness that remains, to look ahead with hope and behind with gratitude. The circle of rest expands, welcoming all who come seeking peace, all who are willing to lay down their burdens and simply be loved. And so, as the night deepens and the stars shimmer overhead, you remain by the fire, resting, remembering, renewed. You have come full circle, yet you are not the same as when you began. Within you now lives a peace that is both gift and inheritance, a source of strength for every day ahead. The shepherd's presence is your true home, and in this eternal rest you have finally found your beginning and your end. And so, as the dawn breaks beyond the circle of the fire, and a gentle light touches the horizon, you rise with a sense of quiet courage and expectancy. The journey that brought you here, through valleys of exhaustion and moments of joy, through storms of doubt and the warmth of community, has not ended at the fire. Instead, it has shaped you for all the paths yet to come. The peace and wholeness you found in the glow of rest are not meant to be left behind, but carried within you, a flame that will guide and sustain you as new days unfold. You step forward, not as one who has finished the race, but as a traveler who now understands the rhythm of returning again and again to the source of light and hope. The world, with its noise and demands, will still beckon, offering distractions and tempting you to slip back into old patterns of striving or fear. But you have discovered a different way, to pause, to listen, to seek the shepherd's presence in the ordinary and the unexpected. The lessons of the journey become part of your daily walk: gratitude in the midst of uncertainty, forgiveness when wronged, joy that persists regardless of outcome, humility in both success and disappointment. You are no longer afraid of the valleys, because you have learned where to find rest. The flame inside does not depend on circumstances, but is renewed every time you return to the quiet center, every time you remember who walks beside you. You trust more easily, forgive more quickly, love more deeply. The shepherd's presence is no longer something you hope for at the journey's end, but a reality you live with each step. A companion who meets you in your weakness, celebrates your growth, and gently kindles your courage to begin again. You realize, too, that your life is now a light for others. Your story, marked by struggle and restoration, offers hope to those who feel lost or weary. You become a living invitation, your peace and resilience a quiet testimony to what is possible for anyone who seeks true rest. You find new strength in serving and comforting others, remembering that the journey is shared and the fire is large enough for all who long to come home. The days ahead will bring new challenges, new seasons of questioning and rediscovery. But you know now that you are never alone. Each morning is a new beginning, each setback an opportunity to return to the flame, to be renewed and sent out once more. The shepherd calls you by name, not just once, but every day, inviting you to live boldly, to hope bravely, to carry light into every place you go. You walk on, steady and unhurried, knowing that you can always come back to the fire, that your peace, your joy, your identity are never lost, only waiting to be rekindled in the shepherd's presence. And as you continue your journey, you do so with a heart that remembers, a spirit that sings, and a flame that will not be extinguished. The journey continues, and with it your story of light, courage, and returning home again and again.